My name is Ella, and I have a problem. A 5'4", perfectly coiffed, terrifyingly judgmental problem named Lyra, who also happens to be my mother. She's coming to visit, to inspect my life choices. Which is why, in a moment of pure, uncut, weapons-grade panic, I told her I was being courted. By an alpha, a powerful one. Very powerful. So powerful, in fact, that he was reclusive. Yes, reclusive. That was a good word. And now she's demanding to meet the man who finally made her disappointing daughter worthy of attention. The problem? He doesn't exist. My solution? Walk up to the most feared wolf on the continent, the literal Alpha King Dimitri, a man the border packs call the Shadow King because he moves like dark water and strikes without warning, and ask him to play pretend. Before you judge me, you should know two things. 1, it was his beta's idea. 2, I was holding a whisk at the time, and my critical thinking skills are historically terrible when I'm holding kitchen utensils. I expected to be turned into a decorative throw rug. Instead, he said yes. Now the Shadow King is my fake courting partner, my mother is on her way, and I have a sneaking suspicion that this was, perhaps, not my most well-thought-out plan. My wolf, who has been listening to this entire catastrophe unfold with the enthusiasm of a cat watching rain, yawned and offered her only comment. The whisk is not to blame. You are simply like this. It started, as most disasters in my life do, at 5 a.m, elbow deep in sourdough. The rolling pin was mine. My shop, my ovens, my name painted in slightly crooked gold letters above the door because I'd done it myself on a windy day and refused to admit it was crooked. It was a modest success in the capital's central market, if modest success meant that the ovens worked most days, and I'd only cried over the books twice this month. The rent had gone up again. 3rd time this year. The flour supplier had raised prices, citing supply chain disruptions, which I suspected was code for, I bought a boat. My savings were a number that would make a financial advisor weep quietly into their ledger. The rolling pin wasn't failing, exactly. It was persisting, the way a candle persists in a draft. Stubbornly, flickeringly, and with the constant threat of going out. But it was mine. And when I was inside it, flour on my arms and dough under my nails, I made sense. My body, wide-hipped and strong-armed and built for this specific labor, was exactly right. My hands knew exactly what to do. I didn't have to think about the way I looked in a dress, or the way taller, leaner she-wolves seemed to move through the world like they'd been designed for it, while I'd been assembled from leftover parts by a distracted craftsman. My wolf stirred in the back of my mind, a familiar, warm presence that most people would never guess existed, because she was, by wolf standards, pathologically quiet. You were not assembled from leftover parts, she said, her voice dry as toast. You were built like a bread oven, sturdy, warm, essential. The fact that other wolves are built like decorative vases is not your problem. I appreciate the pep talk. It wasn't a pep talk. It was an architectural observation. That was my wolf. She didn't perform. She didn't howl at the moon for attention, or bristle at strangers, or do any of the things wolves were apparently supposed to do. She watched. She noticed things. The way morning light caught in flour dust, the way a customer's smile didn't reach their eyes, the exact moment sourdough reached peak rise. She experienced the world with an intensity that was almost painful, and then she made a dry comment about it and went back to sleep. Everyone said she was weak. Quiet wolf, lesser wolf. The pack healers had poked and prodded at me since I was a teenager, trying to coax her into something more appropriate, more aggressive, more visible. My mother had tried everything short of an exorcism. My wolf had endured it all with the patience of a stone and the temperament of a tenured professor who has been asked to explain their research to a particularly dim undergraduate. I am not weak, she would say. On the rare occasions she acknowledged the insult at all. I am selective. There is a vast and meaningful difference. I believed her, most days. The bell above the shop door jingled, and Julian walked in. Julian was the beta to the alpha king, which should have made him the second most intimidating wolf in the kingdom. Instead, he was the most annoying. He was tall, sharp-featured, with dark hair he kept artfully disheveled, and he had been coming to my bakery every single morning for 2 years. He ordered the same thing every time, an apricot scone and a black coffee, and he tipped absurdly well, which I suspected was either genuine kindness or a long-term bribery strategy. We were friends, or at least we were whatever you called two people who traded insults over a display case at dawn. "You look terrible," he said, by way of greeting. "Thank you, Julian. You look like you slept in a hedge." "The usual?" "Please, and I didn't sleep in a hedge. I had a council meeting that ran until 3 in the morning. Stonefang Pack is threatening to renegotiate the timber accords." He slid onto a stool at the counter, rubbing his eyes. "Also, Dimitri's in a mood. The council paraded another eligible she-wolf through the throne room yesterday, Lady something from the Ashvale Pack. She had a 12-page dossier on her bloodline and a smile like a woman who's practiced in front of a mirror for 6 hours. Sounds charming." She brought a genealogy chart, like a family tree, rolled it out on the council table like a battle map, traced her lineage back to the 3rd alpha. Dimitri looked at it for exactly 4 seconds, said, "I see you are descended from competent wolves," and left the room. I snorted, nearly spilling his coffee. He didn't. He did. And then the council spent 2 hours debating whether it was a compliment or an insult, and whether a formal apology was required. Julian took a long sip. He needs someone, not because the council says so, because he's been alone since he was 19, and he's turning into furniture. Very expensive, well-dressed furniture, but furniture. He doesn't laugh, he doesn't rest, he just works, and growls, and reads. Maybe he likes reading. He reads trade agreements for fun, Ella, for fun. Last week I caught him annotating a tax code, with color-coded tabs. Julian stared into his coffee. He wasn't always like this. Before his father died, before Orwin, he was a person. He had a laugh that could fill a room. What happened? Julian's face shuddered. His father was murdered. By Orwin, his father's most trusted advisor. Dimitri called him uncle, ate at their table. Orwin taught him to ride. And then, for a land dispute he'd been nursing for 20 years, he put a blade through the king's back. Julian set down his coffee. Dimitri was 19. He took the throne the same week he buried his father and sentenced the man who'd tucked him into bed as a child. He learned a specific lesson that day, and he's never unlearned it. The people who seem safest are the most dangerous. Warmth is just a strategy. Kindness is just the precursor to the knife. The shop was very quiet. My wolf, who had been observing from behind my ribs, said softly, "Oh, he's not cold. He's scarred. That's a different animal entirely." Julian shook himself, and the mask of easy humor slid back on. "Anyway, enough about my emotionally constipated king. What's wrong with you? You've re-wiped that same section of counter 8 times, and you've got a face like a woman who's committed a crime." I put down the cloth, and then, because Julian was the only person in my life who had never once looked at me with that assessing gaze, I told him. Everything. The phone call with my mother, the lie, the panic, the stupid, impulsive, catastrophic lie about being courted by a powerful alpha. My mother getting on a train, right now, coming here. Julian listened with his chin propped on his hand, his expression shifting from amusement to fascination to something I couldn't identify. When I finished, the silence lasted 3 full seconds. "Ella," he said very slowly, "this is the best thing I've ever heard. It's a disaster. It's a gift from the moon goddess herself." He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "You need a fake courting alpha. My king needs the council to stop parading she-wolves through his throne room like it's a livestock auction. He's been saying for months he'd rather eat his own crown than attend another matchmaking dinner." Julian, no. Julian, yes. Think about it. You show up being courted by the Alpha King, your mother implodes with joy and goes home. Dmitri gets a declared courtship on record, the council backs off, the Silverwood pack loses their leverage, and everyone goes home happy. In a few weeks, the courtship quietly ends. These things fizzle all the time. No scandal, no political fallout, clean exit. The Silverwood pack? Vesper's family. Long story. Political betrothal. Dmitri dissolved it. They've been leveraging the jilted intended narrative to destabilize his alliances ever since. Half the council thinks he should reinstate the arrangement. A courtship with someone else shuts that conversation down. My wolf had sat up. She was doing that thing she did when she was processing, ears forward, head tilted, absolutely still. This is insane, she said. She paused. But it's symmetrically insane. Both sides benefit. That's not chaos, that's architecture. He'll say no, I said firmly. He might, but he might not. Julian scribbled something on a napkin. He reads in the library every afternoon between 2 and 4. I'll tell the guards to let you through. Julian, I can't just walk up to the Alpha King and ask him to pretend to court me. He grinned, standing and tossing a coin on the counter. You can, and you will. Because you're desperate, and desperation makes ordinary people do extraordinary things. He picked up his scone. Also, for what it's worth, he went to your bakery once, in disguise. He thought I didn't know, but I always know. He told me later that your cinnamon rolls were, and I quote, an unreasonable thing to exist in a world this tedious. He left, the bell jingling behind him. I stared at the napkin. My wolf was quiet for a long time. Then, he said our cinnamon rolls were unreasonable. She sounded almost pleased. I want to dislike this plan, but I find I cannot dislike a wolf who understands pastry. An hour later, I was standing outside the Royal Library, my heart trying to escape through my throat. I'd changed into the nicest clothes I owned, a clean navy dress I'd bought 2 years ago and which had fit differently then. It pulled across the hips now, and I'd spent 15 minutes in front of the mirror doing the thing I always did, tugging, adjusting, angling, trying to find the version of myself that didn't look like she'd wandered out of a kitchen and into a place she didn't belong. My wolf watched the mirror ritual with the specific frustration she always had. You are doing it again, looking for flaws instead of looking at yourself. The dress fits the body we have. The body we have is good. Can we go now, or do you need another 10 minutes to despise your hips? I'm not despising them. I'm just adjusting. You are adjusting your posture to minimize the parts of yourself that take up space. I have watched you do this since you were 14. It has never once made you feel better, and it has frequently made us late. I pushed open the heavy oak doors. The library was silent, vast, and smelled of old paper and beeswax. Sunlight streamed through arched windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, lazy fairies. And there he was, King Dmitri, the Shadow King, the wolf who'd ended the Ashenmore uprising by walking into the enemy camp alone and walking out with a signed treaty and, reportedly, someone's lunch. He was sitting in a worn leather armchair, a book open in his lap, a pair of delicate silver spectacles perched on his nose. His mother's, though I wouldn't learn that until later. No prescription. Shifters didn't need corrective lenses. His mother had seen a pair on some human television show and taken an instant, inexplicable liking to them. Wore them every time she read. He looked less like a terrifying monarch and more like a grad student cramming for finals. A very large, intimidating grad student whose shoulders were wider than my entire bakery counter, but a grad student nonetheless. My wolf, who had been bracing for danger, went completely still. Oh, he wears glasses. She paused, composed herself. That's irrelevant. Proceed with the terrible plan. He didn't look up. His presence was a physical weight in the room, a low hum of power that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I cleared my throat. It came out as a pathetic little squeak. My wolf closed her eyes. Magnificent. We have announced ourselves with the mating call of a distressed hamster. One dark eyebrow rose over the top of his book. The Royal Library is for council members and invited scholars, he said. His voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder. It vibrated in my bones. You are neither. I know, Your Majesty. I apologize. My name is Ella. I run the rolling pin in the market square. The eyebrow went higher. The one with the apricot scones. You've had my scones? My beta is an enthusiast. He claims they are the only thing that makes council meetings bearable. My wolf's ears pricked with cautious interest. He didn't deny having them himself. He redirected to the beta. That's a deflection. He's hiding something behind the scones. Right. Well, I'm here because I have a proposition. A very strange one. And I fully expect you to say no. But I'm desperate, and your beta told me that you might be too. Something shifted in his face. He lowered the book. The spectacles vanished. The grad student was gone. The Shadow King was here. You have 60 seconds. Dmitri watched the baker fidget and felt the first crack in the wall he'd been building for 7 years. He knew who she was. Julian wouldn't shut up about her shop. He'd dragged Dmitri there once, in disguise, a ridiculous hat and a scarf that made him look like a spy in a bad novel. The cinnamon rolls had been transcendent, and the woman who'd made them had been something else entirely. Flour on her cheek, a smile directed at everyone equally, from the Delta's wife to the beggar she'd slipped a free roll to when she thought no one was looking. Dmitri had been looking. He'd been unable to stop. She'd smiled at him too, not recognizing him, and the warmth had hit him like a fist to the sternum. He'd left feeling bruised in a way he couldn't explain, and had refused to go back. Because Dmitri had learned at 19 that the things that felt warm were the things that burned you. Orwin had been warm. Orwin had taught him chess, and bought him his first horse, and held his mother's hand at her funeral, and then, on a cool autumn evening, had slid a blade between the king's ribs because a strip of borderland was worth more than 20 years of love. He'd been warm, and he'd been a lie. And Dmitri had spent 7 years making sure he never confused the two again. His wolf, an ancient, heavy presence that spoke rarely and felt deeply, stirred. Not with eager excitement. With the slow, careful attention of something very old, recognizing something it had been waiting for. She is afraid, his wolf murmured, but she came anyway. There is a word for that in the old tongue, the word for someone who walks toward fire because the cold behind them is worse. Dmitri mentally told his wolf to be quiet. His wolf ignored him. It had been ignoring him for 7 years, ever since Dmitri had locked every soft thing away, and his wolf had been left pacing in the dark, mourning a version of them both that had died in the same room as his father. 50 seconds, he said. She squared her shoulders. He noticed she tugged at the hem of her dress as she did it. A small, self-conscious gesture. She was uncomfortable in her own skin. He recognized the behavior because he'd spent years studying people for weaknesses. But on her, it didn't read as a weakness. It read as something that had been done to her. My mother is coming to visit. She thinks my life is a failure because I'm 26 and unmated. So I told her I was being courted by a powerful alpha, and she's on her way here right now to meet him. And if I don't produce one, she will never let me hear the end of it. She might try to set me up with Gideon Blackwood's son, and his wolf has fleas. I can smell them from across the square. She was rambling, words tumbling over each other. It was, objectively, the most ridiculous thing anyone had ever said to him in this library. More ridiculous than the Ashvale genealogy chart. More ridiculous than the time Councillor Harwick had proposed a tax on moonlight. He found he wasn't annoyed. He was fascinated. And your solution to this domestic predicament involves me? Julian said you might benefit too, politically. Something about the council and eligible she-wolves and a genealogy chart? His eye twitched. Julian, of course. I need you to pretend to court me, she blurted out. Just for a few days, just until she leaves. Then the courtship fizzles naturally, happens all the time. No scandal, no fallout. And you get the council off your back. No more matchmaking, no more genealogy charts. Everyone wins. She finished, breathless, already bracing for rejection. Dmitri stared at her. His wolf said, "She walked into the den of the most dangerous wolf alive because the cold behind her was worse than the fire ahead. She is not trying to deceive you. She is trying to survive. You remember what that feels like. You used to." The political calculus was sound. A courtship on record would end the Silverwood maneuvering overnight. The council would lose their matchmaking leverage. He could go back to reading in peace. But that wasn't why he said yes. He said yes because when she'd said, "I can smell them from across the square," she'd wrinkled her nose in exactly the way she'd wrinkled it when the beggar had thanked her for the cinnamon roll. Like the whole world was slightly too much and slightly too wonderful, and she wasn't sure what to do about either. He said yes because his wolf, his ancient, grieving, locked-away wolf, pressed against his ribs for the first time in 7 years and whispered, "Please." "What are the terms of this arrangement?" he asked, leaning forward. Her jaw dropped. "Terms? You show up. You act courting-like. Attentive, a little possessive. You know the type. My mother will love it. You don't have to do much, just stand there and look intimidating. You're already excellent at that." "I will do it," he said, "on one condition. For the duration of this charade, you will follow my lead. I will play the part of an alpha deep in courtship. I do not do things by halves. Are we clear?" Her wolf muttered, "He doesn't do things by halves. Last time a man said that to us, it was the plumber, and the bill was 400 silver. "Crystal, oh, thank you, Your Majesty. You have no idea what this means." He picked up his book. "I believe I am about to find out." As she practically skipped out of the library, Dmitri leaned back in his chair. His wolf was radiating a quiet, fierce satisfaction. Not singing, not celebrating, just pressing against his ribs with the steady warmth of a fire that had been banked for 7 years and had just been given air. She smells like sugar and bread and the kind of fear that comes from caring too much about things you can't control, his wolf said. "I have not felt anything in 7 years. Let me feel this. Do not take this from me." Dmitri put his spectacles back on and stared at his book without seeing a single word. His wolf had asked him for nothing since the night his father died. "Please," his wolf said again, softer. "Just this. Just for a few days." Dmitri turned the page. He didn't say no. Ella was frantically dusting her apartment above the bakery when a sharp, authoritative knock echoed on her back door. She froze, feather duster held aloft like a weapon. Her wolf's ears pricked. That knock has an aura. It expects obedience. Either royalty or a very confident landlord. She pulled the door open to find King Dmitri on her rickety metal staircase, flanked by 2 royal guards in full silver and black regalia. They looked deeply uncomfortable standing next to a dented trash can. Dmitri himself was in simple black trousers and a dark gray Henley that did unforgivable things to his shoulders. "You're early. My mother's train isn't due for another hour." A courting alpha would ensure the environment is secure before his partner's notoriously judgmental mother arrives, Dmitri stated. He swept past her into the apartment, his sheer size making her living space feel like a dollhouse. "Secure? It's an apartment above a bakery. The only threats are rogue squirrels and one overly aggressive pigeon." Her wolf tilted her head. "Actually, there is a pigeon on the west ledge I've been monitoring. It has the eyes of a creature that has made choices and regrets none of them." Dimitri's storm-gray eyes scanned every corner. He ran a finger along a bookshelf. Dust. He peered at the wilting basil plant. Dehydrated. His gaze landed on her door lock. "Substandard. I'll have it replaced." "You will not have my lock replaced. This is a rental." She snatched the feather duster away. "You're supposed to be my fake courting partner, not my home inspector." The roles are intertwined, he said, turning his full attention to her. He was so close she could smell him, clean pine and cold mountain air. Deeply distracting. Her wolf went very still. Oh, that scent. The high forests, where the air gets thin and the stars are so close you could cut your hand on them. She caught herself. Irrelevant observation. Continue panicking. From this moment, we are a courting pair. That means I will behave as an alpha deep in courtship would, which includes ensuring your comfort and safety. His wolf murmured with quiet satisfaction. The den is small, but it is hers. It smells like bread and solitude, and a kind of courage that doesn't know it's courage. We will make it safe. Dmitri blinked. His wolf had said more in 2 hours than it had in 2 years. Also, he added, with something almost gentle in his voice, I've arranged for your shop assistant, Marin, to handle the bakery while your mother visits. Julian coordinated it. The sourdough starters need feeding by 10. Ella stared. How do you know about my starters? Julian mentioned them. He also mentioned your flour supplier raised prices. I will look into it. Her wolf said very quietly, He is paying attention to the small things, the things no one else sees. That's either very calculated or very real, and I am not equipped to tell the difference. The sound of a scroll being hammered to her doorframe snapped her back. What is he doing? Posting a royal notice of courtship? It formalizes the arrangement. Standard for any courtship involving the crown. Standard? This isn't standard anything. It is if I say it is, he said, with a flicker of genuine confusion at her objection. He was approaching this like a military campaign. Total commitment, overwhelming force, no room for doubt. Her wolf watched the whole exchange. He is treating a domestic charade with the strategic intensity of a border war. It's clinically insane. She considered, I find I do not dislike it. A sharp rap at the door, different from the first. Ella, darling, I took an earlier train. Surprise! Her mother's voice, sweet as honey, laced with steel. Ella's blood ran cold. She looked at Dmitri with sheer terror. He looked calm. A slow, predatory smile touched his lips. Showtime. His hand settled on the small of her back, guiding her toward the door. The contact sent a jolt through her system that had nothing to do with panic. Her wolf lifted her head sharply. What was that? That wasn't fear. That was the opposite of fear. What is the opposite of fear? Nothing. That was nothing. A long, skeptical silence. Her wolf laid her chin down but kept her eyes open. If you say so. But for the record, nothing doesn't have a pulse rate. Lyra stood in the doorway, a vision in tastefully expensive beige. Her eyes swept the apartment with targeting system precision. Then she saw the man beside her daughter. She froze. Ella had said she was being courted. She had not said by the Alpha King. Mother, this is Dmitri. He's been courting me. Dmitri inclined his head. Lyra, it is a pleasure to finally meet the woman responsible for my Ella. My Ella. Possessive pronoun, dripping with ownership. Her wolf made a quiet she immediately tried to disguise as a yawn. His Ella. That possessive pronoun has no right being that effective. It's just grammar. Grammar doesn't cause cardiac events. Lyra's shock melted into a beaming, triumphant smile Ella had never once seen directed at her. Not when she graduated top of her baking class, not when she opened the rolling pin, not once. Your Majesty! Ella, you sly thing! It's been a bit of a whirlwind, Ella mumbled. We must have a celebratory dinner, tonight. Ella shot a panicked look at Dmitri. They had no backstory, no romantic details. A 60-second conversation in a library and a mutual act of political desperation. Her wolf braced. This is the part where the wheels come off. Dmitri didn't miss a beat. I would be delighted, but Ella will not be cooking. He pulled out his communication device. Julian, the royal chef, my partner's residence, immediately. and the Aldarian Grove wine from the private cellar. Lyra looked like she was ascending to a higher plane. He leaned to Ella's ear. A courting alpha does not let his partner toil for guests. It would signal disinterest. You are enjoying this, aren't you? She hissed. A ghost of a smile. Immensely. Her wolf. For the record. His breath on our neck? Biological response. Temperature differential. Nothing more. Ella decided not to argue. They'd both lose. The royal chef, Gustave, looked at Ella's kitchen with existential despair. Her oven, a rustic relic. Her knives, charming for whittling. Her cast-iron skillet caused a small, wounded sound from the back of his throat. Dmitri sat at the tiny dining table, weaving a fictitious courtship story for Lyra. I first saw her in the market, he murmured. There was a light about her, a warmth. My wolf noticed her before I did. His wolf stirred. That is not fiction. We did see her. We did notice. You simply refuse to acknowledge it because you refuse to acknowledge anything that might make you feel something other than duty and suspicion. He was so shy at first, Ella chimed in from the kitchen. He kept sending Julian to buy pastries just to have an excuse to hear about me. Dimitri's eyes met hers, a flicker of surprise. That part was closer to truth than either of them wanted to examine. He gave her an infinitesimal nod. I was unaccustomed to such feelings. Her presence was disarming. I found myself at a loss. His wolf, low and aching. You are not even lying anymore. You are saying things you have never permitted yourself to say and calling it performance. I have waited 7 years for these words. Even spoken for the wrong reasons, I am grateful. Lyra dabbed her eyes. Just like the old tales, the fated king and the humble maiden. Gustave muttered something in old wolf tongue that probably translated to, my truffle oil is weeping in this hovel. Then Lyra cocked her head, eyes going sharp. Tell me, Dmitri, what was the very first thing you said to her? A trap. If their stories didn't match, everything unraveled. Her wolf tensed. Here it comes. The iceberg. We are the Titanic. Your mother is the Atlantic Ocean. Dmitri didn't hesitate. I told her she had 60 seconds. Ella froze. The actual truth. Lyra frowned. 60 seconds? To convince me she was the most interesting person to walk into my library in a decade. She used 45. I was convinced by 20. Silence. Then Lyra sighed dreamily. A time limit on love. Only a king would think of that. Ella stared at him. He'd taken the truth and sewn it into the lie so seamlessly she couldn't find the stitches. Her wolf, stripped of all sarcasm. He remembers exactly what he said to us. Every word. People don't remember things that don't matter to them. That means nothing. Her wolf didn't argue. She curled tighter, golden eyes soft, like someone guarding a flame they know isn't theirs to keep. Then Lyra noticed Ella's plate. Darling, you've barely touched your pheasant. Dmitri picked up his knife and fork and, with surgical precision, began cutting the meat on Ella's plate into small, perfectly uniform pieces. Total silence. Gustave froze mid-pour. Lyra stared. What are you doing? Ella whispered. Courting alphas provide sustenance. It demonstrates investment in the partnership. He pushed her plate back. Eat. You need your strength. His wolf thrummed. Yes. The texts were clear. Provision of sustenance is a foundational expression of courtship intent. We are excelling. Ella's wolf experienced a systems malfunction. That is the most absurd, archaic, patronizing gesture I have ever witnessed. She paused dangerously long. Why is every nerve in our body paying attention? Why did our heartbeat change? I need to lie down. I need to think about what's happening to me. Lyra sighed. A true traditionalist, so attentive. Ella ate a tiny, perfectly cut piece of pheasant and wished for death. Her wolf, still lying down, thinking, but what a way to go. The next morning, Ella woke to perfect coffee and stumbled out to find Dmitri by the window in his spectacles, reading a leather-bound journal. Her wolf noticed the spectacles before anything else. The glasses are back. She searched for the right word and failed. This is fine. We are fine. His note on the counter. Starters fed, Marin confirmed, D. Her wolf stared at it. He signed it D. Not His Royal Majesty, not the Shadow King. Just D. That's very human of him. This is getting out of hand. You're too good at this. The meat cutting, the sourdough schedule. Where did you learn all of it? His composure wavered. I read a book. What book? A flush on his cheekbones. Dominance, Devotion, and the Alpha Bond. A primer. She burst out laughing. Full, unguarded, the kind she usually kept tamped down because it was too loud, took up too much space. Her wolf basked. That sound. That is the sound I've been trying to get you to make for 10 years. That laugh is not too loud. That laugh is exactly the right volume. And he caused it. It was research, he said stiffly. The chapter on providing physical sustenance as an expression of courtship was particularly informative. There was a diagram. A diagram? Of optimal food portion sizes relative to the partner's body weight. I adapted it for pheasant. She laughed so hard she had to set down the coffee. He watched her with an unreadable expression, spectacles slightly askew. Then, as she took another bite of croissant, powdered sugar settled on her upper lip. Without thinking, he reached out and brushed it away with his thumb. His thumb lingered. Both froze. The air cracked. His wolf spoke, quiet and old. There, do you feel it? That is what alive feels like. I had almost forgotten. Ella's wolf snapped awake. Oh, that. Do that again. Catching herself. I mean, don't. But if you did, hypothetically, I would not object. He snatched his hand back. You had sugar. Her wolf, trembling. I don't know what that was, but I know what it wasn't. It wasn't nothing. The front door lock rattled. Lyra swept in. Good morning, lovebirds. Castle tour day. They jumped apart. Lyra beamed. Young love. Ella's wolf. We are in catastrophic trouble. The castle tour was a masterclass in performative courtship. Dimitri held her hand through every corridor. When a young courtier bowed too deeply in her direction, Dimitri's eyes flashed gold, and the boy turned pale and scurried away. Her wolf watched him flee. That boy just aged 15 years. Your fake partner is a menace. An effective menace. Lyra narrated a future scrapbook. The grand ballroom, your declaration dance. And the nursery wing, such lovely southern exposure. Her wolf retched. She is selecting crib placement based on natural light. We have been fake courted for 36 hours. Dimitri's murmured sweet nothings were actually, the acoustics carry whispers, do not mention the sham. And, that tapestry depicts my great-great-grandfather. He was notoriously flatulent. The artist omitted this. Her wolf snorted. He is secretly funny. The Shadow King has a sense of humor. This is the worst development yet, because funny plus attentive plus spectacles equals a threat I have no defense against. They passed through a smaller gallery. Dimitri paused before a portrait, a woman with dark hair, kind eyes, a simple dress. His grip on Ella's hand tightened. Who is she? My mother. She died when I was 12, before my father, before everything. His wolf went still. The deep stillness of grief carried so long it becomes architecture. She looks kind. She was. She used to say the strongest wolves were the ones who didn't need to prove it. He touched the frame of his spectacles, an unconscious gesture. These were hers. She saw reading glasses on some human show and fell in love with them on sight. No prescription, shifter eyes don't need one. She just liked how they felt. Said they made reading feel like a deliberate act instead of something you did while waiting for something else. His hand dropped. When she died, they were on her nightstand. Open, like she'd just set them down. The gallery was very quiet. She would have liked you. She would have liked that you talked to your basil plant. You heard that? You told it to grow with more enthusiasm. Your exact words were, "I believe in you, Gerald." I named the basil plant Gerald. I gathered. Her wolf pressed against her ribs. He remembers Gerald. He remembers a basil plant's name. This man collects small, useless details about us the way other people collect stamps. I do not know what to do with this information. They reached the throne room. Vaulted ceilings, stained glass lineage, 2 thrones on a raised dais. Go sit, dear, Lyra urged. I want to see. Dmitri led Ella past his own throne to the slightly smaller one, the Luna Queen's throne, empty for decades. He guided her to sit. The velvet was cool. She felt impossibly small, wrong. An imposter in a body that didn't belong here. Her wolf sensed the spiral. Ella, don't. But the voice was already whispering. Look at you, flower boots in a throne room, wide hips on a narrow throne. You look like someone dressed a bakery in velvet. Her wolf growled, low and fierce. Stop. That voice is not yours. It's your mother's assessment and every healer who poked us, and every wolf who called us lesser, and you swallowed it whole, and now it speaks in the first person. But it is not you. It was never you. Dmitri stood beside her, one hand on the carved dire wolf of her throne. The performance fell away. It suits you, he said. Quiet, meant only for her. He meant it. She could tell with a certainty that terrified her. Her wolf rose to all fours, not with sarcasm, with a dignity that took Ella's breath away. She said nothing. Her silence said, See? Someone sees us the way we actually are. Then a voice, sharp as shattering crystal. Well, well, what do we have here? Lady Vesper of the Silverwood Pack stood at the entrance, tall, stunning, red hair like autumn fire, emerald eyes, deep green silk. The poise of someone who had been told, from birth, that she was destined for this room. Here is what Ella did not know. Vesper was not a villain. She was a casualty. She had been 5 when they told her she'd be Luna Queen. Her mother, Lady Ashara, had started her training the next day. Etiquette, diplomacy, how to walk, speak, hold her head. She was told it was her destiny, the only thing about her that mattered. Vesper believed it the way children believe in gravity, completely, because the alternative was a world without a floor. She had spent her adolescence building herself into the perfect Luna, and on the day she was supposed to take her place, Dmitri had dissolved the betrothal with a single sentence. This arrangement served our father's interests. It does not serve mine or yours. And he was gone. And she was standing in a room full of council members with a life's purpose that had just been declared invalid. Now she looked at Ella on the Luna throne and felt a rage so tangled with grief she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. This wasn't about Ella. It was about watching a stranger sit in the chair you'd been measured for your whole life. So this is the baker who's caught the king's interest, Vesper said, controlled, precise, because control was all she had left. Forgive me if I need more than a courtship notice to believe it. Ella's wolf bristled, but beneath, she is in pain. I can smell it under the perfume. She's a wounded animal with very good posture. Dimitri's voice went dangerously low. Vesper, your presence is unannounced. I heard the news. I thought congratulations were in order. Her eyes swept Ella, cataloging, comparing. She wasn't seeing Ella. She was seeing everything Ella had that she'd been promised. No enchantments, Ella said, steadier than she felt. Just good sourdough. It was the wrong thing to say. She knew it instantly. Vesper's face didn't crumble, it calcified. Then Dmitri did the thing that changed everything. The thing that took a manageable deception and turned it into a catastrophe. He stepped forward, and his alpha voice layered the air with indisputable power. You are speaking to the Luna Queen. The title, in the throne room, with witnesses. Before the Shadow King's voice, which made it law. In the Wolf Kingdoms, when a king makes a Luna claim, It is not a compliment. It is a legal declaration. It means this wolf will sit on this throne. And under the old laws, still on the books from the era when councils checked royal power, any noble house has the right to challenge a Luna claim by invoking the right of blossoms. Ella didn't know this. Dmitri did. He just wasn't thinking clearly, because his wolf had surged forward with a possessive fury that drowned out strategy and statecraft and reason. Vesper's eyes widened, then narrowed. Not with cartoon villainy, with the focused intensity of a woman who had just been handed, by the king's own recklessness, the one legal tool that could unravel everything. The Luna Queen, she repeated, calm now, almost gentle. Then you won't mind the right of blossoms? Ella had no idea what that was. Her wolf's ears flattened. That sounds like something with a lovely name and a terrible consequence. The right hasn't been invoked in a century, Lyra whispered, ashen-faced. Because there hasn't been a contested Luna claim in a century, Vesper said, and she was right. The moon petal vines bloom only when the moon goddess blesses a Luna pairing. It's the ancient check on royal power. When a king claims a Luna, any noble house may challenge. The supplicant enters the sunken garden at moonrise, weaves the garland, and if the goddess blesses the match, the flowers bloom. If not, the garland stays barren. The Luna claim is struck from record. The courtship is effectively over. Vesper looked at Dmitri. Of course, there is another option. You can withdraw the Luna claim. Publicly. Right now. Clarify that you misspoke and that you are merely courting, and the right doesn't apply. There it was. The trap with two jaws. If Dmitri withdraws, he has to say, in front of Lyra, in front of witnesses, in front of Ella, she is not my Luna Queen. I misspoke. The courtship continues, but Ella gets publicly demoted. Her mother watches her daughter get stripped of the title. The charade survives, but Ella is diminished. Again. By someone powerful. Again. If they accept the right, they gamble everything on ancient magic, and whatever they actually feel. Dmitri's jaw was tight. He was already opening his mouth, already preparing to fall on the sword, to say the words that would protect the arrangement at Ella's expense. I misspoke. She is not my Luna. Ella saw it. She saw him choosing to sacrifice her dignity to save the plan, and something in her chest, something that had spent 26 years being diminished by every person who was supposed to protect her, refused. Her wolf planted her paws. If we're going down standing. That's how we do things. Badly and vertically. I accept, Ella said, before Dmitri could speak. His mouth closed. He stared at her. Vesper's face flickered. Surprise. And beneath it, the smallest spark of reluctant respect. Then we will see the truth at the festival. She turned and left. Ella sank onto the throne, bravado evaporating. Her wolf collapsed beside her. Okay, so we challenged ancient divine magic to a duel, to prevent a man we've known for 2 days from saying something that would hurt our feelings. This is fine. Everything is fine. What, Ella whispered to Dmitri, did I just agree to? He looked at her with a mixture of horror and profound admiration. Something very brave, he said, and possibly very stupid. Story of my life, she muttered. Her wolf. Accurate. That night, the apartment became a war room. Lyra paced, Ella poked her sourdough starter. Dmitri stared out the window, rigid with self-recrimination. His wolf was a caged storm. We escalated. We called her Luna Queen because we couldn't bear to see her belittled. And now she is trapped. This is what happens when we feel things. People get hurt. This is why we stopped. We need a plan, Ella said. The right. What do we actually know? Dmitri turned, and his face was a thunderous mask. This is my fault. I made the Luna claim. I will fix it. Fix it how? Command the flowers to bloom? If necessary, he growled. His wolf agreed. We are king. If we tell the flowers to bloom, they should bloom. Anything else is insubordination. The moon petal vines grow in the sunken garden, he continued, forcing himself into strategy mode. They're dormant except during the festival. The supplicant enters alone at moonrise, gathers the vines, weaves them into a garland. The result is presented before the court. If the goddess blesses the match, the flowers bloom. And if she doesn't, the garland stays barren. The Luna claim is struck from record. Great. So my options are divine approval or public humiliation. Lovely. Her wolf. When you put it like that, it sounds bad. She paused. It is bad, but at least we'll be humiliated with excellent posture. There is something else, Dmitri said. The texts mention that the vine's magic amplifies whatever is in the weaver's heart. It doesn't create feeling, it reflects it, amplifies what's already there. Silence. Any genuine feeling. Ella thought of him making her coffee, brushing sugar from her lip. The quiet sincerity when he'd said, "It suits you." There were feelings there. They weren't epic, faded love, but they weren't nothing. Her wolf, very quietly. We feel things for him. You know we do. We don't have to name them. We just have to stop pretending they're not there. For the rest of the night they practiced. Dmitri produced his great-grandmother's diary and taught Ella the weaving pattern with bakery twine. His spectacles came out. Her wolf catalogued this with quiet intensity. The glasses, in low light, reading his grandmother's handwriting. This is an intimacy he doesn't realize he's offering. Their fingers brushed, their heads bent close. The air grew thick with unspoken things. By midnight, she had the pattern memorized. Something soft and fragile had settled between them, too new to name and too real to ignore. The next morning, the poison came. Not literal, worse. Information. Vesper intercepted Dmitri in the corridor outside the council chamber. She was calm, composed, almost kind. That should have been his first warning. "I don't want to fight," she said, and the weariness in her voice was genuine, because it was. "I know you think I'm doing this from spite. I'm not. I need to know if this is real, because if it is, I can make peace with what happened. But if it's not..." She placed a single piece of paper on the windowsill. Her bakery is failing. Rent increases, supplier costs. She's 3 months from closing. A royal courtship would change everything for her. Eliminate the debts, protect the business. Vesper met his eyes. "I'm not saying she's lying. I'm saying you should ask yourself why a baker with nothing walked into the royal library and asked the king to play pretend. Desperation makes people do remarkable things. You, of all people, know that." She left. Dmitri stood in the corridor, paper in hand, and felt the ground shift. His wolf howled. "No, don't do this. Don't let the old wound open. She is not Orwin." But the machinery of his trauma was already turning. The familiar pattern that had kept him alive for 7 years clicked into place. Someone gets close. Someone is warm. There is always a reason for the warmth, and the reason is never you. Orwin was warm because he wanted borderland. Ella was warm because she wanted solvency. The numbers were real. He verified them within the hour. The bakery was struggling. She'd never mentioned it. Never asked for money. Never leveraged the arrangement. But that was how the best lies worked. You didn't ask. You positioned yourself. You got close. You became indispensable. And then, when the mark was invested, you asked. His wolf screamed, "This is wrong. She laughed at your book. She named her basil plant Gerald. She didn't flinch when Vesper called her a commoner. She has never once treated you like a king. She treats you like a person. And that is the thing you are most afraid of, because Orwin treated you like a person too. And you have decided that personhood is the prelude to a blade. But you are wrong." Dmitri stopped listening. Ella noticed immediately. When he arrived that afternoon, the warmth was gone. The quiet smiles, the lingering gazes, the unnecessary touches, all packed away behind stone. He was polite, professional, held her hand in public, dropped it the moment they were alone, performed courting with mechanical precision and no feeling. Her wolf paced in tight circles. Something happened. Something broke. He smells different. The pine is there, but the warmth underneath is gone. Like a forest in winter. All the right elements, but nothing alive. Did I do something wrong? Ella asked. No. Then why are you acting like someone replaced you with a polite mannequin? His eyes were flat. Not cruel, empty. I am fulfilling the terms of the arrangement. Is there something about my performance you find lacking? Performance. The word hit her like a slap. Her wolf flinched. He's retreated. Something scared him and he's gone behind the wall. We know this. Not from him, from ourselves. When someone gets close and the panic says you're not enough, so you pull away before they confirm it. Something's wrong, Ella said, her voice smaller than she wanted. Yesterday you were brushing sugar off my face and now you won't look at me. What changed? A muscle in his jaw. Nothing changed. This is an arrangement. I am honoring it. He left early, didn't stay on the sofa, sent a guard. Ella sat alone, and every insecure voice she'd spent 26 years accumulating spoke at once. He's realized you're not worth it. He's seen what you actually are. A baker with a failing business and wide hips and a quiet wolf. The novelty wore off. Of course it did. Her wolf pressed hard against her ribs, trying to hold her together. Stop. Those voices are liars. They have always been liars. Something happened to him, not to you. This is his wound, not your worth. It feels the same, Ella whispered. Her wolf wrapped around her heart. I know it does. But it isn't, I promise. She was quiet, then showed a vulnerability she almost never did. I've watched you dismiss yourself your whole life. You've never turned that lens on someone else. If a friend told you this story, you'd say the man is hurting and the withdrawal isn't about her. Give yourself the same grace, just once, please. Ella put her head in her hands and cried. Her wolf held on. The confrontation came the next day, morning before the rite. She found him in the library. Same chair, same book, same spectacles. He wore them when he felt safe enough to be slightly vulnerable. And the fact that he wore them now, alone, told her he wasn't as composed as he pretended. Tell me what Vesper said to you. He looked up, spectacles stayed on. A tell. I don't know what you're referring to. Yes, you do. Something changed overnight. You went from brushing sugar off my lip to treating me like a diplomatic obligation, and the only thing between those two moments was a conversation with Vesper. So tell me. His wolf, frantic. Tell her. Let her explain. Do not make this decision for her. That is what cowards do, and we are many broken things, but we are not that. Silence. Then he set down his book. She told me your bakery is failing, 3 months from closing. A royal courtship would save it. The words settled like stones. Ella stared. Then she understood, and the understanding was worse. You think I used you? He didn't answer, which was an answer. You think I walked into this library, terrified out of my mind, and made up a lie about my mother to get you to pay my rent? I think desperation makes people do remarkable things. Her wolf rose, not with anger, but with a grief so deep it was almost majestic. He thinks we are Orwyn. He thinks our warmth was a weapon. He has looked at the most honest thing we've ever done and seen the shape of the worst thing that was ever done to him. Ella's hands were shaking. My bakery is struggling, yes. The rent went up 3 times. My supplier is gouging me. I lie awake doing math and the numbers never come out right. That's all true. She stepped forward. But that is not why I came. I came because my mother was on a train, and Julian said it might help us both, and I was holding a whisk, and my brain doesn't work around kitchen utensils. I came because I'm 26 and unmated, and my mother looks at me like I'm a rough draft of a daughter she meant to write. I came because I wanted, for 3 days, to feel like I was enough for someone, even if it was fake. Her voice broke on the last word. His wolf howled, silent and agonized. Do you hear her? She didn't come for money. She came for worth. The same thing you've been starving for since you were 19. She is the other side of the same wound, and you just stabbed her with it. Ella wiped her eyes, hard, angry at the tears. I would never use someone the way you were used. I know what it feels like to not be enough. I would never make someone else feel that way on purpose. She looked at him with recognition. The devastating empathy of someone who knows exactly what it's like to build walls so high the things trying to save you can't get in. I'm doing the right tonight. Not for you, not for the council, for me. Because I sat on that throne, and for one stupid second I felt like I belonged. And even if it was a lie, the feeling wasn't. I'd rather fail publicly than pretend I didn't feel it. She turned to leave. Ella. She stopped. His voice, rough, broken. I am not good at this. At any of it. I read a book about courting because I haven't been close to anyone since I was 19. I studied a textbook because I don't know how to just be. And when it started feeling real, I panicked. Because the last time something felt real, someone I loved put a knife in my father's back. She turned. His spectacles were off. His eyes were raw. That is not an excuse. It's an explanation. And I am sorry. His wolf, spent and exhausted. There. That is the first true thing you have said in 7 years. A long silence, her wolf watching, golden eyes bright. We're both disasters, Ella said. Yes. Matching disasters. The ghost of something that might, in better light, have been a smile. Symmetrically insane, Julian would say. Tonight. The right. I'm still doing it. I know. I'm terrified. I know. If the flowers don't bloom, then I will kneel anyway, he said, quiet and fierce. Flowers or not. I should have been braver. I should have asked instead of assuming. I won't make that mistake again. She nodded, walked to the door. Her wolf whispered back toward the library. The book. The one about courting. Was there a chapter on apologizing? From deep in the library, though Ella couldn't hear it, Dimitri's wolf answered. Chapter 12. He read it twice. Julian found Dimitri before the ceremony. She told me what happened. The Vesper thing. His voice was stripped bare. Dima, if you let this woman walk into that garden thinking she's not enough, I will end you. Not politically. I know. Do you? Because you've spent 7 years treating every warm thing like a trap, and I've watched it, and I'm done being quiet. She's a baker who talks to plants and laughs too loud, and she walked into your library and asked for help, and the only thing she's ever taken from you is your peace of mind, which you weren't using. I know, Dimitri said, quieter. Then act like it. Twilight, the courtyard packed, torchlight and silk and 100 watching eyes. Vesper near the front, composed but watchful. Lyra in the back, pale. Dimitri stood with Ella at the gate to the sunken garden. The raw honesty from the library still hung between them. Remember the pattern. Twist, loop, tuck. And don't think. He placed his hands on her shoulders, firm, real. You are not a fraud, Ella. You are the bravest wolf I have ever known. His wolf, from the deepest place. She carries fire in her bare hands and she doesn't even know it. Tell her before the garden does. Whatever happens, Dimitri said, whatever the flowers do, I am choosing you. Not the Luna throne, not the politics. You. Her wolf shuddered. The gong sounded. Go, I'll be here. She entered the garden. Silence. Magic humming in her bones. Moonlight on the stone trellis. The moon petal vines, gray-green, barren, sleeping. She touched a vine. Silver light pulsed up her arm. Her wolf gasped. The magic is old, older than the packs, older than the kings. It's not testing us. It's listening. She began to weave, twist, loop, tuck. Her hands remembered. The kitchen table, Dimitri's fingers guiding hers, patient and precise. She thought about him. Not the king, the man in the reading glasses, squinting at his grandmother's diary. The man who'd made her coffee and remembered Gerald the basil plant. The man who'd looked at his mother's portrait and said, "She would have liked you," in a voice pulled from somewhere deep and dark. She thought about his apology. Raw, clumsy, terrible honesty. Not polished, not strategic. A man broken at 19 admitting he was still broken and that breaking someone else in the same place was the worst thing he'd ever done. Her wolf added warmth. Not performing, just being present. She added her private observations, the ones she usually kept hidden. His scent sharpening into something sweeter when Ella was near. His heartbeat going too fast when she laughed. His ancient, grieving wolf reaching through 7 years of silence to say please. The vines changed, gray-green softening, faint luminescence like captured moonlight glowing from within. And there, where her fingers lingered longest, tiny buds. Not spectacular, small, pale, tentative. A hand reaching out in the dark, not sure if it would be held. Her wolf trembled. That's us. That's what we feel. Small, but real. Scared, but reaching. She finished. A perfect, intricate circle. Glowing softly. Buds barely visible, nestled like secrets in the weave. Not the cascading display of legend. To the crowd, at a distance, in torchlight, they would look like nothing. The magic hadn't rejected her. It had reflected her. The flowers were exactly the size of her courage. Real, but too afraid to be fully seen. Her wolf pressed her nose to Ella's heart. We told the truth, our whole truth. It was just quiet. The way we've always been, quiet. And quiet is not the same as empty. Ella walked out of the garden, the courtyard, torchlight catching the glow but not the buds. To the crowd, the garland looked barren. Triumph from Vesper's allies. Lyra crumpling. Elders nodding. Ella walked through the parting crowd, head high, heart in her throat. She climbed to the dais. She knelt, holding up the garland. Vesper stepped forward. What a shame. The goddess does not recognize this bond. The Luna claim is void. The council muttered agreement. Dimitri looked down at Ella, at the garland, and he saw what no one else could from that distance. The tiny, shy, trembling buds. Barely there. Barely brave enough to exist. Exactly like the woman holding them. Something inside him broke open. His wolf, which had been pacing and raging for 2 days, went utterly, completely still. A silence so total it was like the space between heartbeats. He reached down and took the garland. Then he knelt. The kingdom gasped. The Alpha King did not kneel. The Shadow King, who brought war packs to heal with a glance, was on his knees before a baker with flour-dusted boots. He took her hands, the garland between them. His wolf pressed forward, silent. Not with words, not with strategy. With 7 years of locked-away feeling released all at once. A dam breaking in absolute quiet. It knelt with him. It does not matter what the flowers do, he said, his voice ringing through the courtyard. It only matters what I do. I choose you, Ella, flowerless, flawed, furious at me most of the time, and justified in every instance. I choose you. His hands tightened over hers. The tiny buds responded. Not to his power or his title, to the feeling behind his hands. The raw, desperate sincerity of a man who had forgotten how to love and was remembering in real time, on his knees, in public. One bud unfurled, then another. A cascade. Small, delicate, luminous flowers erupting across the garland. Not the spectacular blooms of legend. Something better. Something true. Shy flowers, opening in the warmth of being chosen. Her feelings had been real. His gave them permission to be seen. Silence. Then Julian clapped. Slow, steady. Then another, until the courtyard was a wall of sound. Lyra was weeping. Ella's wolf threw her head back and sang, a howl no one could hear, vibrating through every cell. Pure, terrified, ecstatic joy. His wolf answered, deep, resonant, rising from 7 years of silence. After the crowds thinned, Ella slipped away to a terrace. She needed to not be looked at for 5 minutes. She found Vesper there by accident. The lady of the Silverwood pack stood alone at the balustrade. She wasn't scheming. She was standing very still, and her face was wet. Ella almost turned around. Her wolf said, "Stay." Vesper stiffened. "Come to gloat?" "No. I came to breathe." Silence. Festival sounds drifting up, muted. "I was 5 when they told me I'd be Luna Queen," Vesper said, raw, stripped. 5 years old. My mother started training me the next day. How to walk, speak, hold my head. I was told it was my purpose, the only thing about me that mattered. She turned to Ella. The armor was gone. Underneath, a woman who looked exhausted. When he dissolved the betrothal, I didn't just lose a title. I lost the only version of myself I knew how to be. A shaking breath. I challenged you because I needed to know. If it's real, then he was waiting for something I was never meant to be, and I can survive that. It hurts, but it's clean. But if it was fake, if he threw away my entire life for a game— It wasn't fake, Ella said quietly. It started that way, but it isn't. No, I saw him kneel. That wasn't strategy. Silence. Ella's wolf nudged her. Vesper, you spent your whole life being measured for a role that wasn't yours. I spent mine being told I wasn't enough for any role at all. We're not the same, but I think we know the same feeling. The one where you look in the mirror and can't find the person you were supposed to be. Vesper's composure cracked, just for a second. Then she reassembled it, because that was what she did. "You're not what I expected," she said. "I know. I expected me to be different too." The ghost of a real smile. "Take care of the Luna throne. It has terrible lumbar support." She walked back toward the festival, didn't look back. Ella's wolf watched her go. She's going to be okay. Not tonight, not soon. But she's going to find out who she is when she stops performing someone else's destiny. And when she does, she'll be extraordinary. Lyra caught Ella in the corridor, mascara ruined, pretense gone. She grabbed Ella's hand so hard it hurt. "I don't know when it stopped being pretend," she whispered, "but I saw his face when he knelt. That wasn't acting." She pressed trembling lips to Ella's forehead. "I was never disappointed in you, darling. I was afraid for you. There's a difference. I'm sorry it took me so long to learn it." Ella's wolf held her together, barely. "She sees us. She finally sees us." On the balcony overlooking the city, the garland still glowing between them. "How?" Ella whispered, touching a blossom. "The legends say the flowers bloom when the goddess blesses the match," Dimitri said, raw. "I think it's simpler than that. The flowers reflect what's real. When I saw you kneeling there with those tiny, impossible buds you'd coaxed out of nothing, I realized something." "What?" "That you'd already done it. By yourself. With nothing but the truth of what you felt. They were small and shy and afraid to be seen, and they were the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. I didn't make them bloom. I just gave them light." She was crying. She didn't try to stop. "I was so focused on playing a role that I missed the point. A mate isn't someone you command or cut pheasant for according to a diagram. A mate is someone you kneel for, someone you trust with the spectacles." She laughed through tears. "The spectacles? They were my mother's. She didn't need them. No shifter does. She saw a pair on some human show and just loved them. Wore them every time she read. His voice was rough. I don't wear them in front of anyone. Julian calls them my vulnerability lenses. Wearing them is the closest I get to sitting with her again. I wore them in the library because I forgot to take them off. But I kept wearing them. Around you. I didn't notice until you were gone. His wolf murmured. We noticed. We always noticed. It was the first sign. I know this started as a game, he said, and I nearly destroyed it because I can study a textbook on devotion and still fail the exam. But somewhere between the bad coffee and the lumpy sofa and Gerald the basil plant and you calling me Mr. Research, it became real. My wolf knew the moment you walked into the library. It took my human heart 3 days of disaster, 1 act of cruelty, and a public kneeling to catch up. He cupped her face. I'm not asking you to believe in faded love or magic flowers. I'm asking you to believe in me. A man with trust issues, a courting textbook, and a wolf who has been screaming at him to stop being an idiot since the moment you said 60 seconds. Her wolf rose, not with sarcasm, with luminous certainty. Yes, this one. With all his cracks, with all his sharp edges. This one. She paused. Also the glasses. Specifically the glasses. You are an absolute, unmitigated disaster, Ella whispered. A devastating smile. Real, reaching his eyes. I know. But am I your disaster? She kissed him, hesitant, then deeper, his arms pulling her close. A kiss full of apology and relief, and 2 people who'd been afraid they were worth loving, discovering at the same moment that they were wrong. Her wolf didn't wake up. She'd been awake the whole time, watching, guarding. Now she unfurled completely, not a drowsy awakening, but a surrender. A wolf who'd been called quiet and lesser and not enough, finally letting herself be fully, enormously, unapologetically alive. She threw her head back and howled. Not a sound anyone could hear. A feeling. Joy so large it had no edges. His wolf answered. Ancient, deep, carrying 7 years of silence and the staggering relief of it breaking. The 2 wolves' voices braided together in the dark. Yes, Ella whispered against his lips. You're my disaster. A few months later, the royal kitchens were a war zone. Flour everywhere, chocolate on the floor, King Dmitri, in his spectacles, perplexed by dough stuck to his hands. I'm using the technique you showed me. Push, fold, turn. You're punching it, Ella said, tea in hand. It's bread, not a political rival. It's resisting my authority. Bread doesn't have authority issues. Bread has gluten. Be gentle. His wolf purred. The dough is irrelevant. She is here. The den smells like yeast, and her laugh, and the future. Ella's wolf was sprawled, tail thumping. He's wearing the vulnerability lenses to bake. Covered in flour. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Don't help him. Let him fight it. She walked over, wrapped her arms around his waist, placed her hands over his. Gently. Feel the rhythm. It's a conversation. He leaned back into her. More productive with a mediator. She nipped his earlobe. He kissed her, slow and flowery. Julian appeared. Sorry to interrupt. Stonefang emissaries. Dmitri sighed. Tell them I'll be there in a moment. Shall I mention you're being held hostage by a sourdough starter? Get out, Julian. Julian bowed. At the door, Lady Vesper sends regards from the Frostclaw outpost. She's been appointed Northern Trade Envoy. Apparently she's terrifying local merchants into record-breaking efficiency. She asks me to tell you the weather is, quote, a personal affront from the moon goddess, but the work is, quote, not entirely beneath me. Ella smiled. Vesper hadn't become a different person. She'd become more of herself. Her wolf, quietly. She found her own throne, made of ice and trade agreements. But hers. Dmitri wiped flour from Ella's nose with his thumb, the same gesture that had once frozen them both. Now it was just theirs. A small daily intimacy that meant, I see you. He left to deal with the Stonefang Alpha. Dough on his shirt, flour in his hair, spectacles still on. Her wolf purred. Our disaster. Flour in his hair and a kingdom on his back, and vulnerability lenses on his face. Not a single part of this was in the plan. A letter on the counter, Lyra's handwriting. Ella read it for the third time. Lyra wrote about pride, friends' jealousy, how she'd always known. But tucked between the boasting, in smaller script, I was never disappointed in you, darling. I was afraid for you. There's a difference. I'm sorry it took me so long to learn it. Ella's wolf read it with her, every time. She sees us now, not the version she wanted, the version we are. That's what love looks like when it finally grows up. A newspaper clipping. The Baker Queen, how the Luna Queen is changing the kingdom, one loaf at a time. PAC-funded bakeries in every district, jobs and bread for the poorest wolves. Headline underlined twice. Life was strange. She'd gotten everything she thought she wanted, but not how she'd expected. She hadn't needed to be louder, thinner, more impressive, more powerful. She'd needed to be herself. And she'd needed a terrified, broken, textbook-reading king to see it before she could. She looked around the messy kitchen, starters bubbling, flour drifting, the faint scent of pine lingering where he'd stood. It wasn't the quiet life she'd planned. It was loud and complicated and full of sourdough disasters and political crises, and a wolf who wore reading glasses, and a mother slowly, painfully learning to say, I love you, instead of, I expected more. Her wolf yawned. Not the drowsy yawn of a wolf half asleep, the satisfied yawn of a wolf who had been awake the whole time and was finally in a place where being awake didn't hurt. And she wouldn't have it any other way.